Hey guys, it's Will.
I'm Mike. Hello.
Welcome to a very special episode. We will be ranking all 9 films of Quentin Tarantino.
9.
We saw
This many.
We saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood on Thursday, so the day before it came out, it was July 25th. And we saw like a special kind of preview screening, 35mm. It was at the ArcLight in Culver City. It was really cool. No trailers or anything beforehand. They just went straight into the movie. It was a really good time. I will let Mike speak for himself, but before we get into this, I should add the caveat that I am a huge fan of Tarantino, and Pulp Fiction is one of the reasons I went to film school. I've been a huge fan for like 20 plus years at this point. And so this is not going to be like an objective critical assessment of his films. I think it's just going to be us as fans talking about...
I again, when we ever do lists, we never want to say these are the best movies because that's really subjective. These are our favorite movies of his.
They're all of his movies, but...
Yeah. Well, these are
in our order.
In our order,
yeah.
You know what we mean. So
our lists start kind of similar, and then they diverge from one another.
A little bit, yeah.
So at number 9...
At number 9, I think we both have Death Proof. I brought my notes because I'm going to forget, even though it's only 9 movies. Right?
Death Proof is number 9.
So for me, Death Proof, there's only a few Quentin Tarantino movies that I actually don't like. I mean, I like most of his films, but there's 2 that I just don't like, and Death Proof is one of them. To me, it was...
You don't like it at all?
I don't like it at all. It was super slow to me. It was basically an hour of people talking in a bar, and then a car chase scene.
They talk in the car first, and then
they're back to the bar, and then there's another scene, and then the movie's over. The other thing that really hurts it, in my opinion, is because it's part of the Grindhouse feature. So it's with Robert Rodriguez's Planet Terror, which I think is a vastly superior movie. So you're like instantly comparing them because they're together, and you're like, this is not...
Come on, the machine gun leg. I don't think really like Planet Terror. That's what I'm saying, but that's so stupid.
It is stupid.
It's not like it's like Apocalypse Now and Rush Hour, that double feature.
But to me, Death Proof is easily Quentin Tarantino's worst film.
I don't dislike any of the movies on the list. I should say that right up front. I really enjoy the banter at the beginning of Death Proof. I do agree that I really like the scene in the car. I really like when they first get to the bar. But then it starts to feel like that's the whole movie, and it kind of throws you off the pace of it.
It kind of is the whole movie.
But the car chase is fucking awesome. Come on, the car chase is really fun. And then when it freeze frames at the end, when they all do the high five,
that's cool.
That's awesome.
But
Come on.
one frame does not a movie make.
Okay,
so
well,
I mean, whatever. So
moving on.
What do we have for number 8?
I think we have the same movie again, right? One, yeah. Jackie Brown. I'm actually a really big Elmore Leonard fan. In addition to being a Tarantino fan, I've read the book that Jackie Brown is based on. So I don't dislike Jackie Brown as a movie, but to me, Jackie Brown feels very much like an Elmore Leonard adaptation. It doesn't feel like a Tarantino movie.
Right.
And so I can't put it higher on my list because one of the things I love about Tarantino is the feel of his films. And there are certain aspects of this that really feel like a Tarantino movie, like that scene where Samuel L. Jackson and Robert De Niro are like smoking weed and watching that gun video. Do you remember that part where it's like the women like with machine guns? There's silliness to it that I really enjoy, but a lot of the movie really just feels like it's almost like he's so reverent towards Elmore Leonard that he doesn't want to make it his movie.
Right.
And honestly, I prefer, for Elmore Leonard adaptations, I prefer Out of Sight, which came out around the same time, I think, with George Clooney, the Steven Soderbergh movie.
Don't remember. And for me, I saw Jackie Brown a long time ago, and honestly, I can't even remember it. So that kind of tells you what I think of it.
We should watch it.
We might watch it. Maybe it'll move down in my rankings even more.
There's some aspects of it, too, that are really fun. You know how, like, in a lot of movies, it'll be like, Tuesday, Berlin, like that kind of thing. In this, it'll be like the corner of, Crescent Heights and Hollywood Boulevard, 3:45 a.m. It's like, it has these like little silly flourishes that are really fun.
It's just, I think, so these are the 2 movies.
Chris Tucker's in it.
These are the 2 movies of his that I just generally don't like. Everything else on my list, regardless of order, are movies I do like. So, do we want to
So let's go. Number 7, what do you got?
So number 7 for me, I have the Kill Bill movies. Which I know a lot of people are going to rank higher.
This is where we diverge.
Yeah. Like I said, it's not a bad movie. I like the movie, and I'm combining both of them.
Yeah,
right?
so we're counting Kill Bill as one big movie.
But to me, I'm not into samurai stuff. I'm not into a whole bunch of martial arts stuff, and that's like a lot of the film. It wasn't super memorable to me. The characters were fine. It was enjoyable. I watched it once. I don't really have a desire to watch it again.
You've only seen it once?
Only seen it once, and I don't really have a desire to see it again.
We have to watch it again. Out of here.
That's why I have it ranked number 7 for me.
For me, 7 is Reservoir Dogs. Again, I really enjoy Reservoir Dogs. Like, I saw the 20th anniversary screening actually at the New Beverly, which is Tarantino's theater. That was really, really fun. They were selling Mondo posters just for that movie at that screening. They were $60, and I had $40 on me, and I'm like, I'm not going to go to the ATM. It's not worth it. And now they're like $1,000
Should have bought
on
them.
fucking eBay. I know. Again, like, Reservoir Dogs is a really great movie, and I can understand how if you saw that first and then saw all his other movies, that would be the standard to which you hold all the other ones. But I saw that maybe like third, I think, of his movies, second or third. I mean, it's a really good movie. I like the other ones more, is basically all I have to say about it.
That's fair. All right, so number 6 for me is Reservoir Dogs, and it actually is number 6 for me for one of the reasons you mentioned. I did see it first. It was, I think, my second Quentin Tarantino movie that I saw, first being Pulp Fiction. And I just remember it was very different. The scene in the warehouse with the dancing, the ear cutting, and all that kind of stuff to me felt really, really like unique and fresh. I hadn't seen anything like that at the time. And I mean, I saw it. I can't remember when I saw it, but I was young. I shouldn't have been watching it. I was like, I couldn't have been older than 12.
No, 13. You saw it when you were 12.
I was young as hell.
Get the fuck out of here. I was like 17 when I saw that.
My parents didn't really get what the parental guidance was.
You saw Pulp Fiction before that movie?
I think so.
So you were like 9?
I was young. I don't remember it, but I was super young when I saw those movies. How
much does that explain about him? That he saw the gimp scene when he was like 10 years old.
And I'm like, damn, that's what I want to be when I grow up. But I saw those movies pretty close to each other, and what can I say? It's a good film. It's like his first one. It's legit his first film, and for a first film, it's like well acted, well put together,
just like the structure of it too is so good. Of like, you want to do a heist movie, but you don't have money to shoot a big heist, so
you do
it's
it
the
after,
aftermath. Yeah, it's like a really smart
and
way
it's just a good movie. I mean, what can I say? And I know he learned a lot from that movie, and he went on to make better movies, as evidenced by where this ranks on our list. But it's still a good movie.
So 6 for me. Kill Bill. I know it's not much higher than yours, even though I was ragging on you. I love martial arts movies. I love kung fu movies.
Why not higher?
Well, Kill Bill has a lot of nostalgia for me too because I was living in Tokyo when the first one came out, and the whole kind of like finale of that takes place in Tokyo, and I was actually. The theater that I saw that movie in, I think you can see in that movie when Uma Thurman is driving her motorcycle through Tokyo.
That's cool.
So, and I've seen that movie a ton of times, and I even have like a little lobby book that I bought at when I saw it in Japan.
Is that worth $1,000 now?
I have no idea. Honestly, maybe. I bought it for 800 yen, I think, something like
$2?
That. No, it was like maybe like $10. Okay. But I really like the Kill Bill movies. One of the things that I love so much about Tarantino is the dialogue and the characters.
Okay.
There's not a lot of dialogue in Kill Bill, and I feel like the characters are very internalized, much more so than his other films. So it doesn't offer me like the same stuff I love. I feel bad putting it so low on the list because I really like it, but it's just I don't think it's as good as the other ones.
Yeah,
basically.
I mean, Quentin Tarantino to me feels like each film he kind of learns something and they kind of get better. Generally, not not to a fault, but generally. So I guess we'll move to number 5.
Let's do it.
So number 5, to me, is a film that we just saw in theaters, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Again, number 5 isn't a bad thing, right? It's a really I really enjoy the movie. I liked it. I do want to see it again.
No spoilers, but during the kind of like the climax scene in that movie, Mike was just like rubbing his beard and cackling and like.
I was so excited.
He was so delighted.
Because
don't spoil it.
I don't want to spoil too much because the man behind the camera, Jim, hasn't seen it and he's gonna see it. But to me, it was just I'm into the old Hollywood. I'm into making films. I'm into the Manson family history, like the true crime type of history. Bacon, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So, like, all the stuff was in the movie was really interesting to me. And to see them going through, like, 1969 Hollywood and driving around and being on set. And it was so funny. There's so much humor in it.
Really funny.
And aside from, like, a couple points, like I was telling Will, it feels like one of his least violent films. And it's basically just like a buddy comedy. It's just well put together. It's well acted, well put together. Music's great. I've been telling people I think this is the film that's going to win him a lot of Oscars. I think it's going to be nominated for a bunch, and I think it's going to win 3, 4, 5 Oscars. Leo maybe, him maybe for best director or best film. Wardrobe maybe music. It's gonna be nominated for a lot.
I heard that the dog for best supporting actor.
The dog was Pimp.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, number 5 for me.
5. So 5 for me. Hateful Eight. Again, so there are some people who really don't like Hateful Eight.
There is.
I love Hateful Eight. I saw it in the theaters. I actually was able to go to an advanced screening because a friend of mine had tickets and her husband couldn't go. So I got to see the roadshow version on 70mm at the Egyptian in Hollywood with the music at the beginning. What do you call it? The coda or there's like a overture. Like Gone with the Wind. It has this big overture at the beginning and then there's an intermission and I really love Hateful Eight, and I've seen this movie like 4 or 5 times. I could talk about it for hours, but what I really love about the Hateful Eight is to me it really shows how masterful he is in its details. Like I've watched that movie and paused it and thought about it a lot, and there's the one thing that I'll talk about and then we'll move on is there's a scene where, remember when Kurt Russell's taking everyone's weapons away from them because he doesn't trust them, right? And he goes up to Michael Madsen's character, and he takes his gun away. And then you cut to a different shot of Kurt Russell doing something different. But in the background, you can see Michael Madsen walking to a table and sitting down. And that is not the table he was sitting at before. And what we learn later in the movie, spoiler alert, there's a gun under that table. So that's like the kind of detail that you don't even need that in the shot, right? But it's there in the background, and if you've seen the movie, you know that Tarantino has thought this through so thoroughly that he knows exactly what every single character is doing at every moment and why they're doing it, and it's just like, it's so well done that I could watch that movie over and over again. But I like the other ones more. Again, it's like I feel bad. But...
I mean, we're splitting hairs here, right? So for me, that was number 5, right?
That was 5.
So number 4 for me. Eight. And it's like, I mean, there's only 9 films, right? So there's going to be a bit of like overlap, especially when our bottom 2 films are in agreement. For me, Hateful Eight was really fun because to me, if it's like Western and I like Westerns, and it's basically a play. Like the part after they get to the haberdashery, to me, is basically like, here's the stage, watch what happens.
Although I think people forget
that's not bad.
There's an hour before they get there, though.
There's a bunch of other stuff, but like when I say it's like a play when they get there, that's not bad. That's good, right? There's so much stuff that happens. You have to watch everything. You have to, like you said, pay attention to details. The acting's great. The story's fun. If it's a long movie, but I never felt it drag, right?
Never. No, and, I feel very strongly about that.
And I know a lot of people talk about the ending where, controversial ending, but I'm like, it took 8 of these dudes, spoiler alert, to like finally best this one woman. I think she's like a pretty strong character, even though she's evil, right? Mm-hmm. They're all evil. It's hateful people, right?
That's what the whole movie's about, yeah.
So,
I also think that, like, I mean, we can talk about this with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood till, the end of time, but I think more than well, let me take that back. But Hateful Eight is very much allegorical and engages with what is going on now by looking at the past, perhaps more so than some of his other movies do.
So what do you have number 4?
Number 4, I have Django Unchained. Oh. Again, it feels low because it's such a good movie, but I don't have anything bad to say about Django. I love it. It's a great movie. It's his most straightforward movie, like narrative-wise, right? It really is just like... But again, as with Hateful Eight, there's a lot of stuff going on in that movie that I think is not on the surface what you're looking at in the narrative. That's really intelligent. That's also a really compassionate movie, I find, which is a weird thing to say because it's a really violent movie. Yeah. But I find that movie to have like a lot of compassion for the characters and what they're going through and their growth and their relationships and stuff like that. And there's even some scenes in that movie where I feel as though you see reverence on Tarantino's part towards the subject matter because in a lot of his movies, I think the violence is played for humor. But like there's that scene where the dog rips apart the runaway slave. There's a couple of the fighting scenes where there's stuff that he doesn't show that in another movie I think he would have shown for comedic value that is showing the fact that he understands the seriousness of the film. He's just making it in his own way. Right. So that's number 4 for me, Django Unchained.
Number 3, right?
For you, is it going to be the same?
It's Django.
No!
Oh! Again, like I said, I like Westerns a lot, right? And this to me, this was funny. Then it got really dark, and then it had a bunch of satisfying shit when all the bad people get killed, and
the bad people getting killed. I feel like that's the most satisfying of Tarantino's movies in terms of killing the bad guys.
But Will covered a lot of it. But like I said, I really like Westerns. I really like the setting. The plot is simple. It's just like these people did something bad to this guy, and now they're going for revenge. That's the plot, and it's like. it's like you said, it's a straightforward movie. There's not any like split timelines or a bunch of flashbacks and all this
like
other
the
stuff.
chapter divisions.
Yeah, it's just basically like from start to finish, go, and it's just fun. It's I think to me it's one of his most just like fun movies. You can just like put it in and watch it. Other than the really dark scenes, like I said with the dog one. That's the scene that's probably the toughest for me to watch in that movie, just because it's so violent. But yeah, it's a great movie. Number 3 for me.
My number 3, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's possible that I'm inflating this a little bit because I just saw it, but it's a very different movie for me in terms of Tarantino because when I saw Django as an example in theaters, I was just like amazed by it because it's like such a big movie, it's such a bold movie, it's such a violent movie. Like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is very funny, as you said, but it has this kind of like muted quality and it's very kind of melancholy and it's almost like European feeling. Like the thing that it reminds me the most of is Fellini, and I love Fellini, and we know that Tarantino loves Fellini because he's talked about Fellini in interviews before, but also Pulp Fiction, the dancing scene is a quote from a Fellini movie. There's a really similar dancing scene where they're wearing kind of similar costumes and stuff, doing like the twist. But like the driving scenes, that's very much like a Fellini thing with the camera in the backseat of the car. You know, those shots that you have a lot in that movie. But it's one of the things that I loved about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is it's not. I feel like. And again, like it's ludicrous in a way to rank a movie that I've seen once and that I just saw. I feel like I need to see it again. I need to think more about it. But it feels like one of those movies to me that you could watch it 100 times and every time you see it, it would mean something different to you. It has this kind of like ephemeral quality where it's not as much of a straightforward narrative as a lot of his other movies are, but in being a kind of like almost like French New Wave, like I said, Fellini-esque kind of observational movie, the story that he's telling is not the physical story, it's the story that's in between the lines of like the time and the characters and the passage of time and things like that.
It's like a snapshot of that time period and all the stuff that happened. We don't want to go into spoilers for the people who may not have seen it.
We're reviewing that movie, so we're going to talk a lot more about it in the review. So we're down to the final two.
Final two.
And you know what they are. Are we going to have them in the same order?
So number 2, I have Inglourious Basterds. Again, that's not any slight to it. I love that movie. We just watched it again on Friday.
We just watched it right after Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Me and Will were watching it. Jim was having a hot flash, and Jack was drunk.
Jim, what happened to you? Did you ever figure it out?
No.
He had to go and sit on the floor of the bathroom.
He loved the movie so much that he just overheated. Inglourious Basterds is... We just watched it again and to get a better idea of it. It's just so well put together, so well acted. It's so satisfying when Hitler dies. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it.
If you haven't seen that movie while you're watching this video, come on.
Like it's so satisfying. There's so much humor. The bear Jew just beating people with bats. It's like there's so much stuff in that film to enjoy and watch. And I like this. And some scenes are super tense. The scene in the basement.
The scene in the basement is one of the most ridiculous things ever because it's like 20 minutes long of people sitting at a fucking table, and it's one of the most intense scenes.
It's so intense, and it's like what's gonna happen? And it's like
so good.
Yeah. So number 2 for me, no slight against it. Great movie, one of my favorite. Well, I was gonna say one of my favorite Quentin Tarantino movies, but that's obvious.
Top 2.
One of my top 2 Quentin Tarantino movies. Yeah.
So this is really, really hard for me to choose between 1 and 2 because they are 2 of my favorite movies ever. Number 2 for me, Pulp Fiction. I know, and like I said, like Pulp Fiction was, for me it's kind of hard to pinpoint this because like in a period of like about a year when I was 15, 16, I saw a handful of movies that made me want to go and make movies. And the reason I went to film school, they're probably the reason that we're doing this now. And like the main one that stood out among those movies was Pulp Fiction. Like I loved that movie so much. I've probably seen it like 20 times. I had the VHS in high school and I used to just watch it over and over again. And I knew like all the dialogue and... it's just such a good movie. Like you can't. Like what can I even say about it that needs to be said? Yeah. Like everyone knows how fucking amazing that movie is, how different it was at the time, and how original it is, and totally insane it is, and it's just amazing. It's one of the best movies.
So I mean, without further ado, our number 1s, which if you've been watching this whole video, you can probably guess.
And if you haven't, why are you watching this part?
If you haven't, you want to skip to it. So we'll go into our number 1. Number 1 film for me is Pulp Fiction. I think it's the second Tarantino. I think I said it was the second Tarantino movie I saw.
First or second?
So I think I saw Reservoir
When you were
Dogs.
4.
Yeah, when I was 4, I saw it, even though it wasn't made yet. to me, just like everything about that film works. It's like quirky. It's like fun. There's like these surreal situations, like how you're gonna accidentally shoot a guy in your car, and then you're gonna call some guy to come clean up. What? Come on! And everyone's so calm about it.
So
good. The scene where they go there and they all get shot. None of the bullets hit them. The Gimp scene was so fun. The Gimp scene's so fun. Not because of the man sex, but more because it's super satisfying when Bruce Willis chops
the samurai sword. Yeah,
that's satisfying.
That scene where he goes through the hammer, the chainsaw,
and then Ving Rhames going we're about to get medieval on his ass, and which is always good because I'm in a lot of movies the bad guy does so much bad shit for 2 hours, right? And the ending, the good guy shoots him in the head, and that guy's dead instantly. I'm no, you gotta torture this dude for a year, right?
By the way, but this is the guy who was really dissatisfied with Bloody Birthday because they didn't.
The kids
mutilate the children at the end.
You gotta mutilate. So that's why Pulp Fiction for me is number one, because it did all the stuff I like. All the sections were interesting. The characters were interesting.
Can we hold on? We need to make a shirt. You gotta mutilate.
You just gotta.
Monster Mike's wisdom.
Monster Mike's wisdom. But everything just worked, and I like a lot of those actors. And I mean,
the cast is another thing about that movie. It's just amazing.
Storing the pocket watch and the anus. I mean, what else can I say?
There's nothing else to say. So now you know what my number one is. Inglourious Bastards.
No, not Jackie Brown?
No, unfortunately. Okay. I just, I would make the argument, and I have in the past when arguing with people, that I think Inglourious Bastards is the best movie of this century, probably, so far. I mean, we're, 19 years into the century? But,
years, yeah.
I honestly think it's a perfect movie. And it's innovative in its structure, and the characters are amazing. The setup is amazing. Everything about it is just amazing. Even the camera work is amazing. I think it's some of his best visual design.
Beautiful.
I mean, part of it is that I really love that era in history. I love World War II movies. I love Europe, and I have this kind of romantic sense of Europe at that time.
You find it interesting. You don't love that there's a Holocaust and stuff.
No, well, the movie is not about the Holocaust.
No, it's not.
First of all,
but, yeah.
No, but I find that era in history really interesting. But also, you read stuff about the French Resistance, and it's just so good, and it's so well done. The locations are so good, but I mean, there's just the characters and the drama, and the fact that what you really have there is 10 hours worth of story.
There's not really any
flaws, 2.5 hours.
Right? There's not really anything you can point at and be I wish he did this different.
And the structure of it is genius, right? Because it's how many? It's five giant scenes, basically.
But it's
they're
chapters,
called chapters, but they're really with the exception of a couple of them, the one
scenes.
with the woman who was Shoshana,
mm-hmm.
that section where she goes and talks to Hans Landa, that's a couple different scenes, but most of the chapters are just huge scenes, and it's just the thing with Mike Myers where he plays the British. And I could talk about this movie until the end of time, but I really to me, this movie is absolutely a masterpiece. It's one of the best movies of the last however many years you want to qualify it as. It's one of my favorite movies ever. I just think everything about it is basically perfect. I could talk about it forever, and
we won't because this video has gone long enough. But so, whose list do you like better? Do you like Will's list better?
Obviously.
Do you like my list better? Do you think our lists are complete shit and you have Death Proof number one? I don't know.
Or do hashtag you gotta mutilate. Well, Logan, if you watch our channel, you may have seen Logan, a friend of ours who's in a lot of our stuff. His favorite is Jackie Brown. So he disagrees with us.
So he disagrees.
So if you disagree with us,
so
let
you can
us know.
disagree with us and be wrong too.
And isn't Jack's favorite Reservoir Dogs, or am I wrong about that?
Maybe. I have no idea.
Anyway.
I'm
Will.
I'm Mike. I hope
you've enjoyed this. This has
been
our ranking of Quentin Tarantino's movies. Let us know what you think, like he said, and we'll see you next time.